Hey y'all, how's it going? And welcome back to another update of HalloWeek Reads. If you are new here or you are new to my channel, my name is Jasmine Dayton, and on Thursdays I generally talk about books that I have recently read and I judge them. But this week, in preparation for Halloween, I previously read quite a few different spooky stories to talk about my feelings about them. And here's the thing, I have done this intro 3-4 times already? 3 times? I've done it enough times where I'm a little tired. So if you want to watch all of my other spooky HalloWeek reads for this year, you can go check them out right here on my channel. I will put a playlist down below. I'll make a playlist for them. And based on the title of the video, you guys know I read Frankenstein. I am not going to get too much into it and let Jasmine of the past talk to you about it. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, I need to go off on a little bit of a rant here about Frankenstein. I was looking up, classic Frankenstein at my library. And I cannot tell you how hard it was to actually find the original Frankenstein by Mary Shelley herself. Also, I just love that the folklore story, I'm not sure if it's the real story, but I guess that there is like some sort of legend of how the story of Frankenstein was created, where I think it was Mary Shelley's husband or Mary Shelley's brother, some man in the living quarters of Mary Shelley, got really drunk with his friends, and they basically decided to have a competition with each other and said, each of us individually are all going to write a scary story, and whoever has the freakiest story wins. I don't know what they won, but they won bragging rights, perhaps? So anyway, of course, this is way back in the 1800s, right? Was the 1800s? Haha, I was right. 1818. On January 1st, 1818. What a superstar. Just accomplishing her New Year's goals already. January 1st, 1818. Iconic. So anyway, Mary Shelley, I feel was not a part of this social drinking circle, but she was eavesdropping. And she's like, okay, I want in. And she was the only one who wrote the damn thing. She was the only one who wrote a damn story. And the rest of them either forgot or just didn't take it seriously. And she's like, no, I'm in on this bet. Needless to say, I think she won. So I've wanted to read the original Frankenstein for a while just to understand the roots, the OG story of Frankenstein, and I cannot tell you how difficult it was to find Mary Shelley's book. Because Frankenstein has been such an iconic, scary character since she wrote this book, there's been so many different fan stories about it, so many different renditions of the history of Frankenstein, and I could tell that they were, because all of them were, they were all written by men, and I knew Frankenstein was written by a woman. So I finally found a copy that I could tell was a mass-produced, student study edition of it, which I'm fine. If I get the original story of Frankenstein, fine. That's all I care about. So I'm really excited to read it because Frankenstein has just been an absolute icon in the scary story genre for now a couple of centuries. I do have a really big trip that I am taking that is going to be about 28 hours of driving in total for all of the destinations that I am going to. So I'm crossing my fingers that I will be able to get to a third of the way through for Frankenstein, at least on this trip. I also realized that Frankenstein is not a very large book, so I might be able to finish it a lot sooner than I thought I would. But regardless of how far I get into the book, as long as I actually make decent headway on the book, I will let you guys know how I did during my travels of reading. Do you have something to say? But you're so cute. You little boo-boo on your nose. You little boo-boo. Hey everyone, just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer here. Well, not necessarily a disclaimer, but just is this, I guess, something you should know? I don't know. So for all of the past few spooky reads that I have been doing, I have been reacting to the movie based on them. As far as Frankenstein goes, there are so many movies about Frankenstein. Frankenstein based, but perhaps a different storyline, talking about different aspects of Frankenstein's story. And so because of that, I felt like it would be unfair to do a movie review. And also the actual first movie, the original Frankenstein, is incredibly old. And so because of that, I feel like it's not going to be a spectacular representation of what a movie could be. Not because it's older, but just because there are so many different ones. I would much rather do a comparison watching all of the Frankenstein movies and comparing it to the plot of the book and seeing which one is the most accurate. I think that that would be a more interesting video as well. I'm sorry if you were expecting a movie review. I was fully intending on doing a movie review on Frankenstein because I was certain that a movie was made, but the more that I started digging, the more I realized just how much of an impact Frankenstein has made in the literature world, in the spooky world, in Halloween lore. It's wild. So just wanted to throw this in there really quickly, just to let you guys know. But the remainder of the books that I will be reading for HalloWeek will have movie reviews. So you can count on those ones. But maybe next year I will make more of a full analysis on the Frankenstein movies and all of the different variations that they are, and which one is the most accurate to the book versus the one that actually is the best movie. Hey everyone, I just finished up the first 3 chapters of Frankenstein, and unbeknownst to me, there were actually 3 chapters before the official 3 chapters. So these 3 chapters that were basically 3 chapters of a prologue were letters that the sailor was writing to his sister on his travels. I had a feeling that this wasn't going to be the main character, and my bet was that this was going to segue into us meeting the main character, which I was correct. And then we actually meet the main character during the letters because he is found basically almost dead during this voyage. They're on a very icy terrain, and so a lot of times when they are going through on their boat, they see a lot of people dog sledding on the glaciers right next to them. And so this sailor ended up finding a man that was passed out on his sled with a bunch of dead sled dogs, which is so interesting because this was definitely not the setting that I thought Frankenstein would start in, is like a snowy tundra area. So then we begin to understand, okay, this guy that the sailor found is Frankenstein. This is a common misconception that a lot of people have about Frankenstein. A lot of people think that Frankenstein is the name of the actual monster, when in reality, it's actually the last name of the creator of the Frankenstein monster. I'm not exactly sure if he just named this monster after his last name or if he has a completely different name, but when I am referencing Frankenstein, I am not referencing the actual monster created, I am referencing the creator at this point. I'm gonna be honest, I am not sure how I felt about the first 3 chapters, and I understand that it's a much different time than now of what would be deemed appropriate. So in the beginning, he talks about the story about how his father and his mother became a couple. And even that in itself was a little questionable. So basically, her husband is her father's age, and her father dies. She's very sad. Her father's best friend comforts her, and then they decide a year later, you know what? Let's just get married. So definitely like a big age gap difference, which once again was a little bit more common back then, especially of how the law was set up, mainly in favor of the man of the household. So it made sense that they got married more so lawfully than anything else. I mean, I do believe that they ended up cultivating a relationship with each other. You guys are being crazy. But mainly by Frankenstein's father marrying his best friend's daughter meant that he had control of all of the assets in which she would get to keep because she's married to him. So I understand politically that it was just a little dicey, but in the end, it made sense for the time frame. And that's not even the part that bothered me more. So in the second chapter, Frankenstein explains that he is the eldest. And for such a long time, his mother wanted a daughter. And then she went to a humanitarian project where she brought him along, where she was helping feed the poor and the hungry, and she was feeding this family, and she noticed that they had a very beautiful daughter, a very young child that didn't look like the rest of them. And she asked, oh, is this child adopted? And they said, well, no, we're fostering her. Her mother died during childbirth, and we haven't been able to find the father, so we've basically just been taking care of her, but we can't take care of her for very long because we're poor, we can barely handle taking care of ourselves, we're just trying to do the right thing. And so Frankenstein's mother is like, perfect, free daughter, and takes the child. Once again, not the part that bothered me. This is where things got extra dicey. So, Frankenstein now has a new sister, right? Very exciting. But wait, you got something else too. Frankenstein is told by his mother, this is your future wife. So, if I'm understanding correctly, they are step-siblings. Betrothed, step-siblings. And what's worse is that when I read the Spark Notes, to make sure that I didn't read it wrong, I read the Spark Notes, and it actually says that that is the revised version Previously, when it was first written, Frankenstein's mother had a cousin who gave birth to a daughter who died during childbirth. And then she adopts that child and betroths Frankenstein to her new daughter still. Except this time they're second cousins. And this was before the time where we found out that marrying your second cousin, not a great idea. Not a good idea at all for many reasons. So I don't know how to feel about it yet. There's some questionable things that are already happening in Frankenstein's personal life. And obviously that's not the whole entire scope of what happens in those 3 chapters, but those are the ones that stood out to me the most. We've got the huge age gap of marriages, and we've got the betrothing step-siblings. It even in the revised version, even though they are not technically blood related, so it's fine, still gives me weird vibes. It's weird vibes. Also, something to mention about Frankenstein is that it is a short book, but it is incredibly flowery language, and that's not a bad thing at all. I love literature. I love the way that older literature is written. However, I do think that in the time that I wanted to finish this book, I severely underestimated how much time it would actually take me. So in this case, I'm gonna cheat. And I don't feel bad about cheating, and here's why. I don't feel bad about cheating because I have full intentions of actually finishing the book. I know a lot of people read the Spark Notes and they think, well, what's the point of reading the book if I already read the Spark Notes? But here's the thing. I actually really enjoy reading the Spark Notes previously. That way I can understand in depth the story more as I read it. So for this review, I'm gonna read the Spark Notes. Oh, it feels so dirty to say that, especially just to save on time and to have a better understanding of the book. Once again, I'm gonna finish reading it, but I probably won't be done reading it before this video actually comes out. But that's what I read with the first 3 chapters. So the next time you guys see me, I am just going to make it all in one bigger shot, but I'm going to cut in between times where I am more like a third of the way through, halfway through, and then final synopsis at the end. Oh, you guys look so cozy. Are you gonna move? No? Are you? Okay. Well, I guess you can. Here you go. Now we can see your pretty face. Kind of in my shot, bud. Kind of right where I need to be. Well, I am back a lot sooner than I thought I would be because I'm too curious. So I've got Spark Notes for Frankenstein already pulled up. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let this roll, and I am just going to react, you know, how one would react, depending on what I'm reacting to. Once again, I don't know the original story of Frankenstein. I have no idea what the original story of Frankenstein is. So this is gonna be brand new for me. And we're going to start with chapters 3 through 5, since the last chapter that I read was chapter 3. And I only read about like half of chapter 3, I think. Looks like there are 24 chapters total. So halfway would be 12. A third of the way through would probably be 8. So I have 2 sections to read to get to a third of the way through. Okay, this is something that actually did confuse me in the book as well. Sorry, little side rant. For some reason, I thought that they couldn't have any more kids, but then I do remember that they did have a son, like a youngest son, after they adopted Elizabeth, the daughter, but I don't know what his name is. And for a while, I was confused because Several was named many times, and for a while, I thought that that was the brother's name and not the best friend's name. So I don't know what the brother's name is or if he's even named. By the way, just as a little disclaimer, since I am reading the Spark Notes, obviously I am not getting the fully saturated messages, and a lot of portions of the book are going to be missed. So I may have some follow-up questions or some comments that could potentially be answered when I finish reading the book. And if I do, you can just simply disregard them if you have read the book yourself. And I am more than happy to make an update after I truly read Frankenstein versus the Spark Notes if I feel like there's anything else to mention. Okay, third of the way through. I did not expect the monster to come up so soon. I don't know why, but that's kind of a good thing because that means the story is progressing really well. I don't know how he did it. Hi, Lassie. I don't exactly know how he ended up making this monster because obviously the Spark Notes don't really go into detail, and I'm not even sure if the book itself could even go into too much detail. Every time I try to film, every time. Every single time. But then the monster comes to life, right? And he's like excited about it, but then he is disgusted by it. And so then he goes to bed. He goes to bed, finds the monster looming over him, and then he runs away from his apartment. I'm like, dude, you made this. Can't keep running away from it. I just thought it was very humorous for the amount of times that he quite literally ran away from his creation. Quite literally. So then he gets word that his younger brother, the younger brother that I forgot existed, is murdered. So then he tries to go back to his hometown to, see his brother and to grieve. And then he is trapped out of the gates, and then he sees the monster in the woods around the place that his brother was found murdered. So now he's like, oh my gosh, this monster thought that my younger brother was me and killed him. It's a lot. It's already a lot. It's already a sticky situation. Maybe, and just maybe. Like, this is just something that I think, in my opinion. Maybe don't try and create life using science. Maybe try not doing that. Because I feel like there's no situation in which that ends well. No situation. Very few situations in which that ends well. I can't think of any where it ends well. All right, moving on. We are going to read up until chapter 12. So that is, just 4 more sections again. Now I'm sad. Aww. I'm so sad. Frankenstein the monster Frankenstein made is just a sweetheart. He doesn't want to do anything wrong. He's just confused. He is just baby. Big, strong, scary baby. It's very interesting though, because it takes a very simplified version of the complexities of understanding humanity. Because Frankenstein, obviously just being created, he doesn't know why people are running away from him. He said that when he ran away from his apartment, from Frankenstein's apartment, he was hungry, he was cold, he didn't know where to go, he was lost, like a lost child. And then he decided to go into a cottage just to sleep for the night, and obviously scares the man who lives in the cottage, so he runs away. And then most of the other townspeople run away, and so he understands, okay, I'm too scary, I need to stay away. I'm so sad. So he's extremely strong, but it also seems like the creation that he made excels very quickly. It doesn't take terribly long for Frankenstein's monster to understand the basics of language, which we know from just developing as humans and also just learning a secondary language. It can take so much time to learn a new language and even just to develop language, period. Like, from being nonverbal to being verbal, it can take a couple of years to even get to that point, and Frankenstein has seemed to do it in a couple of months. So this creature is advancing very fast, and he's also much stronger and much faster than a normal person is. So it's interesting that they added in those concepts. But he's just a little guy. I'm gonna be so sad when he dies, because I'm certain that that's how it ends. I am certain. And this is going to be me reading until the very end. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, so the ending of that was definitely a lot more philosophical than I thought it was going to be. So basically Frankenstein's monster, who I don't think ever ends up having a true name, is a great representation of how being misunderstood and isolation can be a very dangerous combo, and why perhaps the main reason why people who are understood and who are isolated generally act out in violence, because it seems to be the only thing within their control. And we can see this, throughout history. There's a combination of being the outsider and being isolated. It leads to violence. And Frankenstein's monster teaches us that it's not necessarily because that's what he wants. Initially, he just wanted Frankenstein to help him find a companion and to not be lonely. And I think in the end, the decision that Victor Frankenstein decided to make, destroying the potential of there being a much faster, stronger, and scarier race of creature that just roamed the earth. I don't think that that would really fix anything. In fact, I feel like it would create more problems. So I don't think that he was wrong in doing that, but I do think that he was wrong in the fact that he made this creation and was completely disgusted by it to the point where he left this creature by himself. And I feel like that would have been like, if I were to compare it, that would be like your mom saying you're ugly. Like, girl, you made me. What do you mean I'm ugly? I really did like this story though, and I feel like I got a lot of philosophical statements and understanding of it just by reading the Spark Notes alone, and I kind of know that that's the point of Spark Notes. They're supposed to take the core values and simplify it down. But in the end, I truly just felt bad for Frankenstein. Like, I feel like even if he had just found a friend, like if Victor Frankenstein was his buddy, you know? Like, I feel like it still wouldn't have worked out well, but it would have worked out better. And maybe his whole family wouldn't have been murdered. I'm very excited to read the rest of the book, but I'm also really excited to watch all of the different versions of the Frankenstein stories, because I'm truly curious of which ones are the most accurate and which ones take the best portions of the Frankenstein book when turning them into a movie. Oh, that's just gonna be such a fun video essay. I know this one was a lot more like condensed, so I hope you all still enjoyed it. Sayonara, you guys, and I will see you next time.